Welcome in. It's another edition of the Doyle and Derek podcast. IndyStar, IndyStar.com. I'm your host, Derek Schultz. As always, the big, huge, mega celebrity star of this program is Gregg Doyel, the award-winning columnist. I've never won anything.
No?
I won a coloring contest at church when I was in second grade, and I was the 1991 St. Joseph High School metro area summer basketball camp knockout and hotshot champion. So that was when I was 8.
You really said that last long title awfully quickly, like it comes out of your mouth
a
lot.
2 trophies that I've won. One was from a coloring contest, and one was from being the 1991 St. Joseph High School metro area summer basketball camp knockout and hotshot champion.
See how fast that came out? See, and we've been doing this thing for quite a while, and I've been on your show with Jake before you got fired for quite a while, and I don't think I've ever mentioned to anybody that I was All-State twice in baseball or once in soccer.
I knew you played baseball. I didn't know that you were All-State.
Twice.
And that's in Mississippi, right?
Georgia,
okay.
Twice.
Yeah.
I don't think you said twice.
Okay.
And as a junior, we won state, and the guy you're sitting with had the bases loaded double in the 5th to win it. So,
wow.
I mean, and just like you remember your hot shot, whatever story you just made up, just like we're these memories, like they carry you forever, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, state champion in Georgia. Like, no, my wife doesn't listen to this podcast, so I can say this because I love her very dearly. My wife was a state champion field hockey player.
Really?
But that was in Vermont, where there are 5 high schools. I would think that being a state champion in Georgia is, and I'm sure you guys had classes there, is a big freaking deal.
It is to me.
Yeah.
It is, I'm still talking about it.
That's still pretty cool.
X number of years later.
Infielder? What were you?
You look at me, I'm left-handed. I'm not very big. First baseman, 1 year, and then center fielder the next.
Were you more of a contact guy, power hitter? How were you as a batter?
I had 10 career home runs, which is not a huge number in high school. So, yeah, I was the leadoff batter.
Nice.
Little leadoff batter.
I had no idea that you were this accomplished as an athlete. You know, in the grand scheme of things, when you talk about newspaper columnists, you've got to be way up there as far as actual athletic accomplishments.
You know, the proudest thing, of course, it's more recent, but I got in the ring with Chris Lytle, and I lost, and that's okay. And so when, every now and then some reader will say, you wouldn't say that to his face. Or actually one reader from Boston, because all the idiots are from Boston, was looking at my, I don't know if you call it my wallpaper or whatever, not my mugshot, but whatever's on my Twitter thing, and it's me boxing. And the guy goes, oh, you're a tough guy. Who puts boxing on there? And I said, well, people do when they're boxing with, see the guy in the picture? That was Chris Lytle I was with. So anyway, F you. Can I say that?
You could say that.
Hey,
you could say F you. Actually, I guess technically we could curse, so it's not like we have FCC regulations on here. I just choose not to.
Yeah, you say, as a guy's already been fired from one gig.
That's right.
You very easily say that Gregg Doyel, could just be dropping F-bombs.
I don't want to you-know-what on the hornet's nest here. Did we learn anything now that it's finally over?
Yeah, I was All-State in 2 sports. I was All-State in 2 plus.
We've learned that so far on the podcast.
You mean other stuff.
Did we learn anything from the NFL Combine, which was only a week but felt like it was 10 weeks?
I mean, I know that was my take last week. I didn't realize you're in the same boat with me.
Oh, I can't stand it.
Well, what I learned from Todd McShay this morning is that apparently the Love kid from Utah State, who I'm determined to call Bryce, I know Jordan Love. Jordan Love from Utah State is apparently a top 10 pick.
He killed it at the Combine.
Right.
So the secret's out.
All these people, and including me, I thought, maybe if they, they can take a flyer on Jordan Love in the 3rd round. No, that's not going to happen. In fact, according to Todd McShay, he won't be there at 13. But guess who McShay has the Colts drafting? Did you see my little tweet this morning?
Yeah, Herbert from Oregon.
They got Justin Herbert, A, falling to 13, and B, the Colts taking him. And I will tell you that what little I know about Justin Herbert, the stories I've read, the quotes I've seen, and I thought this months ago, is holy cow, does he sound as a person more like Andrew Luck than any big-time quarterback I've ever heard. They're not the same guy, obviously, but, I mean, Herbert is very much like Luck. He sounds like an introvert, like he's very smart, like he's probably a dork. He has a big arm out west. And I say dork with love, and I love Andrew, but, there's guys that have all this swag, and then there's Andrew. And there's guys that have swag, and I think there's Justin Herbert. So how interesting if the Colts find their Luck replacement and it looks just like Andrew Luck.
It's just there are so many teams that either absolutely need a quarterback or could convince themselves that they need a quarterback in front of the Colts that when I saw your tweet, I was just shocked. I'm not expecting Love, Tua. I think 4 quarterbacks will go before the Colts select at 13.
Well, and Herbert would be the 4th.
Yeah, I think so on that list, especially after what Love did in the Combine.
Yeah, and I think McShay might have been a little bit biased based on Combine results, because I noticed a lot of the names in there, Jordan Wilfs or whatever, and the kid from Clemson and Jordan Love. A bunch of these guys had great workouts, and so maybe at the moment he's buying into the recency bias of that. But I was, the things I learned are just they're making kids bigger, stronger, faster than ever. I mean, you just wonder. And obviously, we're always going to get bigger, stronger, I guess, until the planet blows up. Someone will always be faster than someone else. The numbers they're putting up now at the size they're putting up.
Oh, it's insane. The offensive lineman that is 6'5", I'm spacing on his name, like 360 pounds, and he ran a sub-540.
Mekhi Becton.
What was that?
Well, how about
insane?
That Jordan Wilfs kid? I think his name's Wilfs.
From Iowa?
From Iowa.
Yeah.
Apparently ran like a 4.8.5 40.
Yeah.
And
insane.
We're used to reading 4.3, 4.4. So I don't think the average person realizes that 4.8's damn fast. I mean, as I've already, I don't mean to be stupid here, but I was a pretty good baseball player, batted leadoff, stole bases. I ran a 4.9. Okay, I mean and that was pretty quick.
And you're half the size, more than half the size of these linemen.
Right. I mean, maybe 4.8, but bottom line, I mean, that guy's moving. For a guy that size, moving.
No, it's crazy.
How about the guy from Clemson? Is his name Simmons? That is 6'3", 240, runs the 40 in 4.3 something, and has a 40-inch vertical. I mean, that's insane.
What's also pretty nuts to me, and I know that you and I both kind of poo-pooed the Combine, but what really is neat about it is that these guys train and train and train and train and train, and one misstep, like you trip on the turf at Lucas Oil Stadium, or you don't have your best day, and that time sticks with you forever, or that rep, or how many times you got up the bench press, that sticks with you. And yes, the cream rises to the top, and guys, the Combine results aren't the end-all, be-all, Greg, but we do measure a lot. I mean, it could be the difference for some guys from being a third-round pick and a late first-round pick, because you grab people's attention by what you do here in Indianapolis.
Well, I don't mean to change topics abruptly. We can keep on the Combine topic, but I was thinking about this as I drove over here, how important strength and conditioning coaches are. And in a lot of programs, big ones in college, they get paid every bit as much as the OC and the defense coordinator. I mean, because if you're – and you look at the Combine and you see – just little incremental advantages in all these numbers, and you're drafted higher and you become great pros, because it's such a small difference between a good player and a great player, and that difference might be a tenth of a second. And so you see IU just lost 2 guys, 2 strength coaches, 2 of them, both of them to Alabama, and you wonder, IU has been looking better and better. And I know Tom Allen's a fine coach, he's recruiting great, I get all that, but how much did those 2 guys play a role? Because we see how important in the Combine, how important measurements are. I mean, what did IU just lose? Are we overlooking what they just lost?
Yeah, we're not even talking about the players that they've lost.
To Alabama, they lost the coaches. Yeah, and the players too, right?
Yeah, it's been an interesting offseason for IU football, and I would like to talk about that. In fact, when we were talking before we started the podcast here today, you shot me a text to add that to our rundown list, so I do want to.
You're so humble. Our rundown list, just so listeners know, every day, every week, Derek sends me a text with, here's the show rundown. He's got like 12 topics, and I just kind of go, thank you. And that's my contribution to the pre-show work, is reading your text and going, thank you. But today there's something else.
We're both around it. I mean, we know what the topics are. I mean, you're paid to know. I used to be paid to know what the big topics are. So it takes me just a couple of minutes to put this together. There was a lot of talk as well. I think we touched on this last week. I don't think we really touched on it a whole bunch, about the Combine's future and whether it's going to stay in Indianapolis. It feels like the NFL is definitely going to take it, at least temporarily, somewhere else. But just your thoughts on it moving. I think you vehemently wanted it to stay in Indianapolis, as most people in Indianapolis do.
Well, sure, and I can see them. I can see them moving it. I can't see them moving it. But if they do move it, I can see it coming back here in about 5 years. Then again, the NFL might not want to admit a mistake, so maybe not. But I don't understand what you're talking about. You say I'm paid to know what's going on. I have no idea what you're talking about when you say you can see it looks like the NFL is going to move it eventually. What are you talking about?
I just feel like what they've done with the draft And the fact that we have to do this every single year, the last couple of years with the Combine, hey, how long is it going to stay in Indy? Hey, how long is it going to stay in Indy? That leads me to believe – I don't want to make it sound like they're definitely going to move it. I just feel like the NFL is going to at least try to put it somewhere else and see if they can – they're all about making more money and driving more interest. Hey, let's put it in L.A. or let's I think Dallas is one of the cities that they've talked about.
That's hilarious. Let's put it in L.A. or Dallas, where we really can't get our athletes from the hotel to the stadium to the hospitals for their medical testing, and never mind where the media is going to be. Like no one wants this thing in Dallas. I mean, Dallas people want it in Dallas, I guess. Nobody else wants it. Nobody wants it in Dallas. Nobody in L.A. The only people that want it in L.A. are the people that, when they're done working, want to sit by a pool with a pina colada in their hands. But for the actual work, which is why you're there, nobody wants this thing in L.A.
Vegas, I think, was the other one that's been talked about. But I have no idea logistically how all of this would go down. I know it works in Indy because it's been here for damn near 40 years.
Yeah, 125 degrees in Vegas, even in March or April. It's not going to be in Vegas. That's ridiculous. I'm actually the Vegas's rise as a sporting city is pissing me off. Just they got a hockey team, I think. They got a football team coming.
A hockey team, yeah.
Right, and they got a football team coming. Is it hockey? Yeah, right. Are we in the Stanley Cup right now? Where are we?
No, the Stanley Cup's in June. It's a very drawn out long regular. In fact, it's a month longer than the NBA regular season.
Are we still in the regular season?
Yeah.
Okay, news to me. Vegas, you're the fight capital of the world, and that's cool. You're the loser gambler capital of the world. That's cool, I guess. But keep your hands off of our real sports.
I think Vegas's problem is going to be similar to what Atlanta's problem has been with their teams. It's that no one in Vegas is from Vegas. So it's hard to build a fan base. Like here in Indianapolis, a lot of people are from either Indianapolis or Indiana, so it's a little bit easier, I think, to build a fan base, whereas in Vegas, it's such a transient place.
Right.
And it's not some mega metropolis. You can get away with that in New York and L.A. because it's New York and L.A. or Toronto or somewhere like that.
Yeah, what'll happen in Vegas is the newness of it people will rally around the newness.
Sure.
And if they win big, like the hockey team came out of the gates winning, see, I knew a little bit of hockey, there'll be a following. But if they don't win big, they're going to just drop it. They're just going to quit on following them. So the Raiders better win fast or they will have nobody watching them.
We know all about the quarterbacks, steering it back to the Combine and the Colts love and all these guys that we've talked about ad nauseum. We've also talked about Phillip Rivers and Tom Brady. There's another crop of veteran quarterbacks that are likely going to be on the market, and your colleague Jim Aiello wrote about them for the Star earlier this week, and Andy Dalton, Marcus Mariota, and Nick Foles. Any of those guys jump out to you at all as a feasible option for the Colts for 2020?
No. Foles, Mariota, and Andy Dalton, for God's sake.
Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton's only 32 years old.
Great.
Doesn't it feel like Andy Dalton's like 38?
I hope he turns 33 somewhere else. He's been around forever. That's Einstein's insanity, is bringing in guys that have already proven they really can't do it anywhere else. Let's bring them in here and just make sure they can't do it here too. The only way that makes sense to me is the word Aiello word he used in the story was competition. Competition for Brissett in the training camp. Because we saw the way, and you can't make sense of it, but the numbers are what they are, and they're undeniable that for his entire career, but this last season especially, Brissett is not the same quarterback in quarter 4 that he is in quarters 1 through 3, which speaks entirely of pressure getting to him. Entirely. Same receivers, same play call, different quarterback in quarter 4. So there's something wrong there, and I wonder if the Colts are thinking, if they bring in, Marcus Mariota, are you kidding me? If they bring in him or somebody like that, and does Brissett, does the cauldron of having to compete for that job, does that toughen up Brissett to the point that maybe four quarters are better? Or... I don't know. Otherwise, no. Go draft somebody, trade up and draft somebody, but don't go bring in someone who's no better than Jacoby. Don't do that.
Just devil's advocate, though, and let's say, look, I agree with, and we've talked about this. You know where I am. I'm with you on this thing. I'd like to draft somebody, but let's just play devil's advocate with this scenario. The 4 quarterbacks that we just talked about, Herbert, Love, Tua, and obviously Burrow, all off the board when the Colts are picking 13th, right?
Right.
If you don't feel like Brissett is your guy and you have a year here, which is kind of a purgatory year because you're not going to draft and develop anybody, there's nobody that you like that's left to draft and develop, would it be worth taking a flyer on somebody like Dalton who has 1 year left on his contract? You're not necessarily losing anything. It's just 1 year on the deal, just like you have 1 year left on the Brissett deal if you feel like Dalton can be better than him in 2020. I know that that's not the long-term view, but even and who knows, maybe Dalton takes off and then you decide, I can't imagine this happening, and you decide to extend him from there. Foles, I don't like at all. I think Foles just kind of caught lightning in a bottle for one fluky run.
But the thing
is, Mariota, I think, can't play dead.
We know who Foles caught lightning in a bottle with, though, right?
No, you're right. Yep.
I mean, with Reich.
Any one of these guys, and this is the reason that we're talking about all of them, Greg, any one of these guys come into the Colts situation, it's a better situation than the one that they're leaving. Any one of these guys.
Yeah.
It's a better situation for Rivers. It's a better situation for Dalton. It's a better situation for Foles. It's a better situation for Mariota.
I mean, I like Rivers more than any of the other guys. Having said that, those guys have – I mean, they're going to be too covered. They're not coming here. They're going to be – I'm not saying they're good. In fact, I've already said they're not good. But in a league star for quarterbacks, the Colts have one of those guys already. I don't see Dalton or Mariota getting equal money from the Colts. They're going to get somewhere else. And even if they do they want to come in here and compete with Jacoby Brissett? Mm-hmm. I think it's not going to – there are so many reasons why that will not happen, including I'm not sure why the Colts want him, but I can't see why they want to come here with Jacoby still here. So it's not going to happen. So,
and I know they have oodles of cap space, but it would be weird to pay Brissett $21 million and then pay Dalton $18 million, and you've got $40 million tied up into two quarterbacks.
Well, one thing that Irsay and mainly Ballard has proven is that they're not interested in throwing their money around. They're kind of like those people, the guy that's worked his whole life and stuffed his money under his bed, and when he passes away, he's got $90,000 in there he never spent, and he was eating cat food. That's kind of the culture of this money. They got salary cap, but they're not using it. They're shoving it under Irsay's bed and just letting it sit there. So so they're not going to bring it out. I mean, Andy Dalton is quarterback cat food. They're not bringing it out for that guy.
Well, we'll see. We got a couple of weeks here until free agency, so a couple more weeks of delicious speculation for all of us to talk about.
Delicious cat food.
And that too, yeah. College basketball-wise, Purdue is in action for a really critical game at Iowa tonight. You were at Mackey for Purdue's, what was that, like their 80th win in a row against Indiana? I've lost count.
10 of 11. Or is it 11 of 12?
It's 10 of 11. It's 7 straight, 10 of 11,
and you sent out
15 of 20.
You sent out a really bitter, kind of cute, and I don't know if you saw my response to you. Did you see my response?
I don't think so.
Oh,
about the graduating class?
Yeah, you got so many responses. I'm sure you didn't see mine. I just wrote back one word, cutie, because you wrote that IU is now 1-15 against Purdue.
Oh, that one, okay.
Without a Zeller.
Okay, yeah.
Since Zeller left.
Yeah.
That's pretty cute.
I just think that it's interesting to see how much of an upper hand you go back in this rivalry, and people talk about the gap between Purdue and Indiana. Purdue's like 129 to 88. Almost all of that was built pre the start of World War II. So from 1901 to 1938, Purdue was dominating Indiana. But for the most part, this has been about as even of a rivalry since then as you have in college basketball. It's one of the great rivalries that exists. I'm a homer because I'm here in Indiana, but I think it's still, even with both of those programs having some issues over the years, it's a great rivalry. It's very rare when you find it being one-sided over this stretch, and Matt Painter winning 15 of 20 since the start of the 08-09 season. I mean, that's pretty darn impressive. I don't care how up and down Indiana's been. That's dominance.
Well, yeah, and look at this year. I used the team on the right side of the bubble, and Purdue's not.
Yeah.
And yet Purdue still swept them.
They took both.
And I think they won both by a grand total of 20 or so. I mean, neither game was at the buzzer. They won them both.
Yeah, they controlled that the both games throughout. Really,
they controlled, right? Yeah, so they're just, Painter is. The numbers show it. He is a better. The numbers say he's better than Tom Crean, and the numbers say so far he's better than Archie Miller. So that's what it comes down to a lot of times, is which coach is better. That's who wins the rivalry.
When you said the tweet, I thought you were mentioning the fact that Purdue's, barring a Big Ten tournament matchup, which is very unlikely at this point given where they both are, Purdue's senior class will graduate without having seen a lost Indiana.
Yeah, and Purdue's senior class is really
7-0.
It's Tommy Luce.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, they got a couple of graduate seniors, but you really can't count Evan Boudreau.
Don't count. Yeah.
Right, they weren't here 3 years ago. But Tommy Luce will have never lost. And I wonder if he's ever gotten on the court against him, because, he only plays – and the Purdue fans, they wanted him on the court the other night at Mackey. They were chanting Luce with Purdue just up 6, with like 12 seconds to go, and Matt Painter wasn't going to do it. But it would have been cute to see Tommy Luce in that court. I mean, he's pretty good. by the way. He's pretty.
Oh yeah,
he's
they've
pretty
had some
good.
guys like that. Bobby Buckets that came through. They've had some players. You know, you got to think to even walk on to a program like Purdue or Indiana, you've got to be. I remember Mark Titus walked on to Ohio State. He played like 5 minutes his entire career. A kid from Brownsburg.
Yeah.
And he would take videos of himself at open gym, and he was just making it rain. He looked like Steph Curry. And then you realize, well, Ohio State's a top 10 program, at least when he was there. You know, it's tough to make that there. In or out for Indiana and Purdue, ultimately, if you had to call it today?
Indiana's in, Purdue's out. But to me, the Indiana thing, I mean, Purdue's obviously out. But to me, the Indiana thing, it's not as cut and dry as everyone seems to think. Just even today in the net rankings, which is not everything, but Purdue is 36 in the net rankings, or 35 maybe. Purdue's 19 spots behind them. I'm sorry, I'm screwing this up. Purdue's like 35. IU's 54.
Yeah.
And again, that's not everything. But I wonder if on the year there's so many teams in the bubble and the selection committee is looking for reasons to keep you out, are they going to look at – and Purdue's, on the Joe Lunardi, they're like one of the last 4, maybe the last 8 teams out. So they're close, but they're not in. But is the selection committee going to look at a team that's 20 spots higher in the net ranking and has swept, IU and say, Purdue, not only are you not in, but we're going to put that team in ahead of you? I think it might be easier to say you're both out.
Both of those programs have a glaring issue. And Indiana's, as you mentioned, is that their computer profile stinks. Being a sub-top 50 net team is not great. And also, if you look even at some of their others, Ken Pom, they're a little bit better. They're somewhere in the top, the back of the 30s. But all season long, Indiana's really kind of struggled with their computer profile, whereas Purdue's has been really strong. It's been much stronger than their record. And the fatal flaw for Purdue is the fact that no team has ever made the NCAA tournament with a winning percentage worse than .533. And right now they're at .517.
Right.
So if Purdue even wants to have a puncher's chance, they got to finish like 3 games over 500, and that's going to be really hard for them to do because very likely they're going to go to Iowa City, a team that they dominated. So I'm not writing off their chances of winning, but they're not favored to beat a top 20 Hawkeyes team tonight, and then you're right back to 500 again.
Right, exactly right. Now, there are 4 more teams in the tournament than there ever were. Back when Georgia was the team, I think that was .533. They were at 15 and 13, something like that. There was only 64 now, or maybe 65. Now there's 68. So that is 4 more spots. So it's a little bit easier. And this is a weird year. I saw that Kansas is number 1 in the country right now, unanimous. And I think it's the first time all year, or the first time certainly in months, that they've had a unanimous number 1. Duke is 12. So teams that were clear 1 seeds 3 weeks ago are now out of the top 10. And it's and that kind of chaos is everywhere. Now, in IU's favor, they've got wins against 2 of the top 15 net teams. They got Florida State and Ohio State's climbing up there. Mm-hmm. Ohio State's doing IU a big favor because they were falling apart.
Michigan State's come on a little bit too.
Oh, Michigan State too, right?
Yeah.
So maybe they have 3 then. 3 wins against 3 of the top 15 or 20. That might get them in.
Yeah, I think Indiana's going to be fine if they take care of business at home this week. If they can't lose to Minnesota, that'd be a quad 2 loss, and that'd be really crippling. And they got to find a way to beat Wisconsin for once, a team that has owned them for the better part of the last 20 years. If they sweep these games at home,
it's over. They're in.
Yeah, I'd be hard-pressed to think of a scenario. I think they're safely in. They're probably in the 8-9 game if they win these 2.
If they sweep, they're clearly in. The danger is if they get swept at home down the stretch.
They're in big trouble then.
The committee's not supposed to look at the last 10 games. They've taken that kind of – and I don't know why you do that, but they've apparently taken the last 10 games off the radar. But, man, if they limp in to the Big Ten tournament with losses at home against Minnesota, which is no good, and then of course, Wisconsin, which is pretty good, that's in fact, they're not in. I don't see it. I just don't see it. Not over Purdue. Again, Purdue's not getting in either. But
and as we know, the Big Ten tournament has been a total and complete catastrophe for Indiana over the years. They're terrible in that event.
True, but they'll be a home team-ish.
Well, they'll have to – if they lose both of these games, let's say your scenario plays out, Minnesota and Wisconsin, they'll play Wednesday.
Right.
They'll be 11th or worse in the Big Ten. They're going to play the first day.
Right, but and they got to win that game at that point. But you also know that in that game against whoever they're playing, they're going to have all the fans.
Sure, but they've had all the fans before in Indy, especially, and also in Chicago, and they're just snake bitten in that event. I think Purdue's got to win tonight and then beat Rutgers and then hope to win at least one Big Ten tournament game to feel like they've even got a puncher's chance. So.
What does Rutgers have to do to get that S out of you?
They got to be
top 25.
They got to be competent. They were previously. They've now faltered down the stretch. They got to be competent in football for me to give them.
Oh God, they'll never be anything but Rutgers.
You know, I didn't even start that. An Indiana blog called Crimson Quarry are the people that started the whole Rutger thing. But I just thought it was hilarious, so I borrowed it from them.
Okay.
Took some creative license. Let's talk Pacers as well. Up to 5th in the East after I think I said on the podcast last week, I'm paraphrasing, that I'm punting on the Pacers season. They win 4 straight, of course. 4 straight wins. They've won 6 of their last 7. But I think the big issue, Greg, that everybody's keeping an eye on, Oladipo seemingly has got something new popping up every single night health-wise.
Yeah, it was his back a little while ago, which is going to happen, but there's swelling in the knee they surgically repaired. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's going to happen. I don't know. That sounds scary to me. And they won without him last night on the road. San Antonio's not great, but on the road. But they've won. I couldn't believe they won 4 in a row. I had, I guess, mentally punted a little bit myself when I read they've won 4 in a row.
They basically wiped out what they did earlier in February, so they're kind of back to even.
And 5th in the East because the Sixers have lost their best 2 players and they have no heart and their coach is terrible. So the Sixers, they ought to be ashamed. The Sixers, they ought to be absolutely ashamed.
It's embarrassing that they've underperformed as much as they have, given the talent that they have.
Brett Brown seems like a nice guy, and he'll be a really nice unemployed guy soon. But I don't understand why they're so bad. I don't get it.
I mean, if you take their roster and if you had them play as hard as Toronto plays, they'd go 75-7.
Yeah,
I mean, I really think that, and I know they've had some injury stuff too that has popped up.
Yeah,
I don't want to make excuses. You're right. Brogdon has come on as well. 20 points per game. He's shooting over 50% during this winning streak. I know 4 games is a really small sample size, but I think kind of lost in the shuffle of Oladipo's return and the Pacers' struggles was that Brogdon was really not playing good basketball for a long stretch there.
With Oladipo back.
Well, I think some of it even predated Oladipo coming back, but he had about it felt like a month, maybe even 6 weeks there where it was a little bit struggle bus for him.
Yeah, and it was going to happen with Oladipo because he was the point guard. He was the league. He was dominating the ball, and now all of a sudden he's not. So that was going to happen. And he hasn't. I mean, he was a 50, 40, 90 shooter last year. 50% from field goal, 40 from 3, and 9% from the line, and hadn't been close to that this year. Now the free throws are great, but nothing else. So he's not had the year he had in Milwaukee. Of course, he didn't have Giannis get all the attention down here either. So he's not been quite what I think the Pacers had hoped. Quite. But maybe he's finding his comfort level now.
You know who's been even more, I think, than the Pacers could have hoped for in their wildest dreams is T.J. Warren.
Love him.
I mean, he has really, really filled it up for them.
Yeah, and just like Bojan Bogdanovic, no one's saying he's a defensive stopper, but he's pretty good on defense. Warren's the same. He's not a stopper, but he's pretty good.
He tries.
Well, in the NBA, that's half the battle.
Yeah, it is.
He tries and he's long and he can move his feet a little bit. But yeah, no one thought he was going to come here and play any defense at all. Dan Burke, everybody was kind of hoping would fix him, but I mean, he's been fine on defense. But hopefully I talked about this on the podcast with you a couple weeks ago. Hopefully I did. Just the moment I got to share with him this year was a small little thing, but he came into the media room to help me out on a story I was writing. Wanted to make sure I had all the right information. This was after he'd scored 35. And I look up and there's T.J. Warren in the media room trying to get my attention, trying to make sure I get something right. So
really, I never see the players in there.
It never happens.
Yeah, wow.
Never. It doesn't. That has never happened.
Just by himself, or did he go back there with like Chrissy or David or somebody?
David Benner.
Okay, cool.
Walked him in, I think, but still he was looking for whoever that guy was he'd been talking to, and it turned out that guy was me. So yeah, I've never seen that.
No, you didn't share this story with me, I don't think, because I don't know what you're referencing.
Well, he had the night he scored 35.
Uh-huh.
I think it was before the All-Star break. Obviously, it was. He scored 35, and so everybody's crowding around his locker, and he's got 2 shoes in his locker, and we can see the back of the shoes. And on the left shoe, it has somebody's first name. I forget now. The right shoe, the back had the kid's last name. So let's say it was, John Smith. It was John and Smith on the left and right. I'm asking TJ afterwards, who is John Smith, and he tells me it was a kid with cancer. Is what he says, and it's a Nike sneaker that the kid got to design for Nike, and he was wearing it just to support the kid. He didn't know the kid, but was supporting the kid. But he told me cancer, so I take notes and go back to the media room. Well, as I'm writing my story, it's on deadline. TJ shows up in the media room, and he's got his phone out and he shows it to me. He's smiling, and he says, "Here, read this." And so I read it, and it's about that kid. And that kid, it wasn't cancer; it was muscular dystrophy, I think.
Okay.
And it's a very small gesture, right? But he wanted that kid to have, if he was going to get written about in the paper, he wanted it to be right. And I thought that was just a really unique little thing that no pro athlete's ever done that. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, he's an impressive dude. And I think on the court, the biggest apprehension I had about the Warren move is that sometimes, especially in the NBA, you take a guy off a losing team and you put him on a winning team with a whole different culture. Sometimes, I mean, we kind of just saw that last year with Tyreek Evans, right? Tyreek Evans has played on horrible teams his entire career.
And filled it up.
And he comes here and he's bad. And look, I know he had some personal issues as well. I don't wish the guy any ill will, but let's face it didn't work out. This has worked out like gangbusters for the Pacers so far because he's come from a bad losing situation in Phoenix, come here and hasn't skipped a beat. I think he's really embraced it, and his teammates have embraced him.
Yeah, he wasn't a guy that I get what you're saying is that teams, they go to bad teams and someone has to score.
Yep.
So you're the someone, and that was Tyreek Evans. It's always been Tyreek Evans. That wasn't TJ in Phoenix. I mean, someone had to score, yeah, and he did, but he's scoring the same amount almost here, maybe even a little bit better here. So he's a really nice player, a really nice addition to their lineup. And did you see that somebody? And I just saw this in passing. But there's some coach in the NBA or player or somebody, maybe it's Charles Barkley, saying that the future of the NBA, the Pacers have it with two bigs, like it's going back that way. I don't.
That's news to me.
Yeah,
even though Turner's played really well these past couple of games.
Yeah, I wish I had more than what I just said to throw out there. But I saw it and thought, whoa, really? I think it's getting the Rockets are showing the future's going somewhere different.
Yeah, and let's kind of hit the brakes on where the future is with Clay and Steph and everybody out at Golden State. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
We always kind of want to jump into what the next thing is, but Golden State basically had to take a year off, and they were the dominant team. So I think we need to maybe pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, the Pacers aren't the next thing; they're actually using the last thing.
But I am happy with where, and this gets back to Kevin Pritchard, and we've talked about this on the pod. I'm happy with where the core is going forward. I don't think they're going to win anything this year of significance, but I think the fact that he flipped around an aging core of Young and Bogdanovich and Collison, etc., and turned it into Brogdon and Warren and the Sabonis extension and all of that, I think is absolutely going to be a positive here moving forward.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they have in Goga, Batadze, and he was their first-round pick last year, and they did well with Holiday. They did well to get Aaron Holiday at 25 or whatever. That was great. He's pretty good, darn good. Goga, they were swinging for the fences on that one. That was kind of a boomer bust pick from day one. It was this guy's 7 feet tall and young, and if he develops into something special, then we've got something special. And if he doesn't, well, what we're going to get at where'd they get him? 11, 12, 14?
Jeez, I think more like 17 or 18.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it was outside of the lottery because they made the playoffs.
Oh, right. So it was 18, I think. So, yeah, what are you going to get at 18 anyway? The odds are not great. So far, and Goga's young, and he deserves a couple years to build and whatnot. But kind of like with TJ Leaf over the years, I've never seen TJ Leaf puts up nice numbers in the G League, but I've never seen in the NBA game. And I like that draft pick. I thought he'd be better than he is. I've never seen TJ Leaf showing anything like, okay, I see it. I don't see it.
Which is too bad because he's a great kid.
Great kid.
I'm rooting for him big time.
I don't see it.
Yeah.
And same with Goga. I really haven't. He gets sporadic minutes. It's really not fair to even say this yet, but I mean, I haven't seen it yet. Nothing. I've not seen it yet.
I thought he'd have a little more polish because they made it sound like he had a little more polish, but transitioning overseas to here, it's a big leap for any rookie.
Sure.
So we'll let that play out. I think the jury is still very much out. Wanted to touch on one other thing before we left, and you had the chance to go to the girls' high school basketball state finals, which is always a great time. Yep. All the IHSAA state finals at Bankers Life are great. And had a great story about LN and their championship over an unbelievable opponent in what was a terrific game.
Yeah, Lawrence North, they beat Kokomo Northwestern. Northwestern has two Big Ten signees going to Michigan State and Purdue. And the girl going to, one of the D1 signees, her little sister is a freshman, 6'1", starts also. And that McKenna Layton's going to be really good someday. So I'm watching the game, and Lawrence North is just overwhelming them with athleticism. They're quicker. Their point guard, Christian Young, I think, is just the fastest player on the court, and so that's how it looked as I'm watching it. It was okay. They ran into a different level of athlete here, and they did. But then I'm doing research into who Lawrence North is, who these players are, and two of their best players, their best athletes, are also in the top 30 of the graduating class. Like they're top 30 out of a class of 700. I mean, that's ridiculous. And one of them was the Trester Award winner, or the Patricia Roy Award winner for Mental Attitude, because she volunteers and does all kinds of great stuff. That was Lauren Gunn. Anyway, those two girls, obviously very, very smart. Jayla Smith, I talked to her, and I'll take her SAT score, whatever it is, over mine. She sounds smarter than me. And the fourth, Katie Davidson, is clearly smart, very smart. So they didn't just out-athlete Kokomo Northwestern. They outsmarted them, and they actually played smarter too. So that was eye-opening for me to watch. And I think Lawrence North has a great coach in Chris Giffen. He's great.
And when you're reading those stories, I think it's important for you guys. I know you read, all of you listening to this read Gregg all the time, to realize that game recognized games. So Gregg, being a two-time All-State high school baseball player, he knows star athletes when he sees them.
There's a reason why last night my girlfriend went to an IndyStar meetup and like a celebration of some awards some folks have won lately, and Tim Evans in the Hall of Fame, and everybody got to meet Whitney.
Nice.
And as I was walking away, everybody was yelling at me, "Don't screw that one up, Gregg, because you're not doing better than that one." So anyway, Whitney recognized All-State. She actually, hopefully she's listening at some point. Whitney, did you know I was All-State? Because I was in two sports.
Yeah, that was the whole selling point. That's when you guys became official.
She didn't
right
even
after
know
she found out, right?
until this moment. That's how humble I am. I'll say it 14 times in the podcast, but she don't even know.
You can check out all of Gregg's columns, not only LN, but also the IU Purdue dynamic from Mackey, and where those two programs are headed. Also, and we talked about this, the Ray Pavian, the Jimmy Rails story that you put up right after the podcast last week.
Yeah, and I got one as well. It's not coming out for a few weeks, but it's been really emotional and hard to do, and it's really hard to do. It's do you remember Butler had a player, you remember him, but named Ted Guzik. He was an All-American. He played with Bobby Plump in the 50s.
No, I don't know that name.
1957, All-American, and then he died in a car crash in 74. Great guy. Great player. He's going to be inducted in the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame way too late, but finally going to be inducted in a few weeks. And so that's kind of the news hook I'm using to get into his, final day. But also he had two kids, 10 and 8. Like, what happened to them? I've always wanted to know what happened to Ted Guzik's kids. I found out. So I've written. I mean, this is a mouthful, but I write long. Like I have two kind of stories, long and longer. I've never written one this long. There's just too much there. And if it's too long, it's too long. But I can't leave some of the great stuff I found out. So that's coming soon.
And when you win as many awards as you do, you can kind of throw your weight around on that with the editors and all of that, right?
Whitney, did you hear what he said about awards? I don't think I've ever talked to you about that either. Wink,
God.
wink. Maybe a time or two. I've mentioned that.
I'll return next week with the very humble Gregg Doyel on the next edition of Doyle and Derek. We'll see you then, pal.